Laura was a 25-year-old young woman whose beauty amazed everyone, but for her, her beauty was not enough to cover the difficulties in her life. She lived in a small shanty in a poor neighborhood with her mother and her 17-year-old sister, Emily. Her father, Patrick, had left the family when Laura was only 7 years old and started living with another woman. This abandonment was devastating for her mother, and the family struggled to survive on their own from that day on. Emily never knew her father. Laura only remembered him through blurred memories and her mother's sad face. Despite all these difficulties, Laura managed to hold on to life. She graduated from the visual arts department with great success, making her family proud. However, the disappointment she experienced after graduation soon caused her hopes to give way to despair. She could not find a job as she wanted. Although her talents in painting, sculpture, and design were appreciated, there were few opportunities to utilize them in a small city. Laura put her artistic dreams aside and started working as a cashier in a supermarket to support her family. The supermarket was a monotonous and exhausting place for Laura. Every day, starting early in the morning and working late into the evening, Laura endured all kinds of injustice for fear of losing her job. Despite the sometimes rude behavior of the customers and the endless criticism of her bosses, she was determined to continue this job for her family. Her mother was old and sick, and her sister Emily was still in high school, so the burden fell on Laura's shoulders. As the days went by, news spread that a new manager was to be appointed at the supermarket. This man, Patrick, was said to have a strict and disciplined management style. Employees spoke in horror of Patrick's behavior in the past, where he had worked. For Laura, this meant that her job was about to become even more difficult. From his first day, Patrick made his authority felt. He tried to dominate every corner of the supermarket and imposed strict rules on the employees. Laura did her best not to attract Patrick's attention. However, her beauty and her shy demeanor soon got him hooked. Laura began to feel uncomfortable with his stares and insinuations. Patrick sometimes interfered too much in Laura's work and sometimes put her in a difficult situation with unnecessary criticism. Laura couldn't share her uneasiness with her mother and didn't want to show it to Emily. Her family was already in enough trouble, but Patrick's pressures made it difficult for the young woman to work quietly. This restlessness, which was growing inside Laura day by day, was the harbinger of a big storm that would break in the future. While Laura thought everything was going wrong in her life, the biggest confrontation had not yet begun. Who Patrick was and what he was going to do would change Laura's life forever. Laura had felt Patrick's pressure from the day she started working at the supermarket. This man, in a managerial position, was constantly yelling at her, making things unnecessarily difficult and often violating her privacy. But Laura had to support her family, so she put up with it and tried to focus on her work. But Patrick's behavior became increasingly disturbing. One day, when they were alone in the warehouse, Patrick's verbal abuse crossed the line. As Laura walked away with trembling hands, she began to realize how horrible it was. This can't go on, she thought. That night, she called Rachel, one of her closest friends. Rachel said, "You need to take this to court, Laura." "We can't let men like this walk free," Rachel encouraged her. Laura knew that access to the CCTV footage would be important evidence in the case, but she was also sure that the supermarket management would be reluctant to share the footage. Rachel and another friend, Mark, decided to help Laura. One night, they gained access to the supermarket's security room through Mark's acquaintance, a security guard. As Mark looked through the cameras, he found footage of the harassment Laura had experienced. As Laura watched the footage, she felt like she was reliving those moments. She tried to pull herself together and stay strong as tears streamed down her face. "This time I won't give up," she told herself. Soon after, the lawsuit was filed. Patrick became even more angry and threatening as word of the incident spread. The supermarket management temporarily suspended Patrick and promised to support Laura throughout the trial. But Laura knew that her unease would not subside until true justice was done. When the day of the trial arrived, there was a tense atmosphere in the courtroom. Laura's mother and sister Emily were with her. Patrick tried to keep his composure as he gave his defense, but Laura noticed the occasional look of concern on his face. After watching the CCTV footage, the judge quietly went through the files. Just then, a few words from the judge's mouth dropped a bombshell in the courtroom. The defendant, Patrick Johnson, is also the legal father of the plaintiff, Laura Green, the judge said. Silence fell over the courtroom. Laura froze in place, shocked by the words she had just heard. Patrick's face turned white. His mother bowed her head and tried to hide the tears in her eyes. Emily turned to her mother with a puzzled expression and whispered, "Is this real?" Laura felt a fire in her heart. When she was 7 years old, she vaguely remembered her father leaving them, but she would never have guessed it was the same man. Patrick had appeared before her years later and turned her life upside down once again. Now he was on trial as a sex offender, and as a father, he had to face the family he had left behind. The judge stopped the court for a short recess. As Laura left the courtroom with tears in her eyes, she heard Patrick trying to say something to her behind her back, but she didn't want to listen to him anymore. What mattered to Laura was that justice had been done, that now was the time to fight to heal the wounds of the past. During his time in prison, Patrick thought over and over again about the mistakes he had made. His regret for what he had put his daughter through kept him awake at night. One day, sitting in the prison library, he picked up a pen and decided to write a letter to Laura. "Dear Laura, I know what I did is unforgivable. I neglected you for years. I abandoned you and your mother, and when I found you again, instead of acting like a father, I only hurt you. During this time in prison, I faced myself and realized what a big mistake I made. You said you wanted to improve yourself, to give you a chance and start over. That's why I sent you a large sum of money to open a small art gallery. I know it won't make up for what we lost, but maybe it's a start. I love you and I'll do everything I can to make sure you can call me Dad again." Patrick's letter lay in Laura's hand. The tears in her eyes showed that she felt the weight of each word. Her father was trying to pull himself together and help her get one step closer to her dreams. When he read the letter to his mother and sister Emily, everyone fell into an emotional silence. Her mother took a deep breath, as if she had let go of the anger she had been holding inside for years. "Maybe he needs a second chance too, Laura." Laura nodded and decided to use the money to open an art gallery. They worked for days, with her mother, Emily, and a few close friends by her side. The day the gallery opened, many people from the town came to congratulate Laura. As Laura guided the visitors, happy to have achieved her dreams, she felt her life taking a different turn. However, she did not know where her father Patrick was and questioned whether she was ready to confront him. One morning, as Laura was organizing her paintings in the gallery, she heard the door creak open. It was Patrick. He looked like he had just gotten out of prison. His hair was gray and his face was tired but deeply peaceful. Laura paused at first. Her eyes filled with tears, but the anger and resentment inside her slowly melted when she saw the regret in his eyes. Unable to control her emotions, Laura rushed to her father and hugged him. "Dad, it's not so easy to forgive you, but still, seeing you here, this is more precious than anything else." Patrick could not hold back his tears as he hugged his daughter. The years of regret and guilt that had been building up inside him were relieved in Laura's arms. "Laura, I was not a father worthy of you, but to see you again, to talk to you even for a moment, that makes it all worth it for me." After this emotional moment, Patrick expressed his admiration for the gallery to his daughter. Laura offered her father tea and suggested they visit the gallery together. They both learned that day that a broken relationship can be mended. As Patrick's hope grew, Laura felt the peace of having the father figure she had longed for years. Her mother and Emily also witnessed this new beginning. The burden of the past was lifted from their shoulders, and they decided to build a future together. If you liked the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more.